What's up, Scrubs? This is Nate from the Scrub Academy here today with a very special deck profile coming straight to you from Altoona, Iowa at the regional there this past weekend. I am here with Gabe, who got second place playing what?
World Chalice, or it's more or less a bootleg Spirals.
Now, what made you decide to want to play this deck instead of a meta deck like Trickstars or Spirals or True Draco?
And as soon as Master Rule 4 hit, I was super obsessed with the World Chalice. They're just one of those Link Turbo decks. And I picked up the deck to teach someone how to play Links. It was a girl I knew. And ever since then, I personally fell in love with them, and I got really invested into the archetype. And I just picked it up and I started working with it. And I eventually fine-tuned it enough that it was oh yeah, I can play with this competitively now.
Now this was a rogue deck for the tournament. It wasn't meta. What do you think gave you the upper hand against people who are playing decks like Spiral or Pendulum Magicians or Trickstars?
It's just I personally know how to play against the Magician or the Spiral matchup, but I don't think an opponent would know how to play around a World Chalice matchup unless they personally played World Chalice. They wouldn't know what to Ash Blossom or what to Ghost Ogre or what to hit with their hand traps. And at the end of the day, that's what gave me the best advantage.
Awesome. Well, I actually do not really know much about the World Chalice deck itself, so I'm going to leave it to you to go ahead and give us this deck profile. So go ahead.
Yeah, Can Do's will. The first card is going to be the 3 World Chalice Fairy Lee. She's the searcher. Most of the time she's going to be searching the same target, but she can search any World Chalice card, including herself. It's hard once per turn. And she can also, while in grave, pitch any monster card from hand or field to add herself to hand again. And both those effects are hard once per turns. She's a level 2 light fairy, which becomes very techable with certain cards like Transmodify or other cards later in the build. The second card is the most common search target, the World Legacy World Chalice. This card turbos the deck so well that I'm surprised they even let it come out, because when it's normal summoned and it leaves the field, it's going to special summon 2 straight from deck. And this is the one that people they'll see it hit the field and they'll be oh, it's just a level 5, and they'll read it for a little while, and then by the time it's in grave, it's already protected enough by chain links that they can't stop it with an Ash Blossom or anything, and you get a free 2 free special summons to progress your links. The next one's a one-of, Guard Dragon. You're going to special summon this off of World Chalice 9 times out of 10, but sometimes I search it as a target depending on how my opening hand is. It's a hand trap as well, but I never got the chance to use that effect because it doesn't come up a lot. It's if a link monster would be destroyed by a card effect or something like that. The vanillas are the 2 beckoned of the World Chalice. It's level 4, it's 1800, it's Earth. All those things come up a lot. I played 2 so I could go into Baguska, but it didn't come up nearly as much as I was thinking it would. But it's pretty good. The Brilliant Fusion target, the Gem Knight Lapis, I don't have the garnets, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. You're literally going to go into it and go into a Link 1 10 times out of 10. I've never had a problem with this not being a garnet. The Venus Engine is the 3 Agent of Creation Venus. You normal summoner, special summoner, whatever. And then pay 5 unlimited number of times per turn to special summon a Shine Ball from the deck. The Shine Balls are level 2 light fairies, and there's just going to be link fodder. You're going to go straight into plays. You open a Venus and any of your combo cards like the World Chalice or the Lee, and you gotta draw 3 Ningir so you play on your hands. I put these in a little last second, the 2 rabbits. I thought I would see more of the Pendulum Magician matchups or the matchups that rely less on the link monsters, so I could make use of Baguska. I did have a Spiral matchup where this came up, but it didn't put in a whole bunch of work, but it came up from time to time. Probably one of my favorite tech cards in the deck is Dandelion. A lot of people I don't see playing this card in this deck, but Dandelion puts in so much work all the time. I remember one of my last match, Dandelion saved me the game essentially, but I lost game 3, but it was one of the coolest plays I've ever had with the deck. Other tech cards are the one of Gofu and Fairy Tale Snow. my sixth round match, I had a Infernoid player, and they immediately went, banish a Decatron from hand, special summon an Infernoid, tribute the Infernoid for Vanity's Fiend. I was like, shit, I have one out in this deck, and I top deck the Snow, and I was like, oh my god, that's like godly top decks. Yeah, Snow is one of those cards that every time you use it, it's going to be good. You can make link fodder if you need to, but at the end of the day, it's going to just save you rounds essentially. The Gameciel is not as used for a kaiju so much as it is used for its actual effect, which is it is a walking solemn judgment. Firewall Dragon's going to special summon that from the hand, or Orum's going to special summon it from the grave. And if you have kaiju counters on the field, it becomes Trigate Wizard 3 times in a round, which is like, that's game breaking for some people's boards. This won me 2 matches. Hand trap lineup's going to be the 3 Droll, 2 Ash, Max C, and an Ogre. I wanted to run the 3 Ash over the Ogre, but my boy didn't have the third one. Droll was by far the MVP in terms of the hand trap lineup in like the typical hand traps you see. Ash didn't put in nearly as much work as I thought she did, but she did save me a few games. I didn't get a lot of use out of Max C and Ghost Ogre. But above all of those hand traps, the one that put in more than most of the work is Herald of Orange Light. I gave this card so much shit when my friend first told me about this. I had a friend on the page tell me, hey Gabe, you gotta play this Herald of Orange Light. It's gonna save you a few games. His effect is that when your opponent activates a monster effect, pitch it and another fairy from hand to grave to negate the monster effect. It's beta, but you have to pitch 2. It's a neg 1 inherently, but that never, I never thought of it as a, me negging, because as long as I had 1 combo card in hand, I could go off. As long as I had a World Chalice in hand and a normal monster, I could go off. And having that extra fairy in hand was not I didn't ever lose anything from it, and it saved me so many games and caught so many of my opponents off guard. The card text I had was a little bit of an older variant where it said card your opponent controls, but the newer variant does state that it's it'll stop any monster effects. Onto the spell lineup, I have the one-ofs, the Legacy's Heart, Soul Charge, Foolish Burial, and Terraforming. The terraformings are going to search out the Kyoto waterfronts. The Kyoto waterfront's just going to be your counters. It searches out the kaiju away, so you don't need to play more than 1 kaiju. I see a lot of people putting in the Radians, but honestly, every time I tried to move it in, it just clogged hands. The Soul Charge and the Foolish Burial are kind of just good cards to run in general. The World Legacy Heart, this card puts in a lot of work as well. So the World Chalice has an effect in Grave that it can banish itself to search out World Legacy's Heart. World Legacy Heart targets 2 World Chalice monsters with different names in your grave and adds them to hand or extra deck if they're an extra deck monster. And it also has an effect that saves you from getting destroyed, saves linked monsters from getting destroyed by a battle. And that actually came up once in one of my duels, and I was so psyched. The 3 Brilliant Fusion. Brilliant Fusion is going to be that card that always gets ashed. Every time I opened Brilliant Fusion, I also had Herald in hand, and every time they tried to ash it or they tried to hit it with some bullshit, I could immediately counter with the Herald. This was protecting this Brilliant Fusion saved me so many games. It's and this is an immediate if you open Brilliant Fusion in 1 other card, you have an immediate draw 3 off of Ningirsu. The traps are going to be the Solemn Scoldings. This put in so much work. I never had to avoid the evenly matched, but this, you have a well-timed negate, and you're going to win the game 10 times out of 10. Extra deck is pretty cut and dry. The 3 Imduke, I've seen a lot of people move this down to 2, but I went through all 3 in almost every game that I played. I never had a chance to. I was never I wish I didn't have 3 of these, and I wish I had something else. The 2 Ib, it's protection, and it's also a link 2 that will help your Ningirsu plays. Proxy Dragon, this is a little more generic, and you can use it to create and facilitate some of your plays. The Aurum it's a Monster Reborn that tributes a card at points to special summon any monster from grave, which is usually your Gamasiels or your Dandelions for combos. Ningirsu, a lot of people don't know about the effect to draw based on the number of World Chalice it points to, but every time you go into Ningirsu play, it's going to be like a draw 2 or a draw 3, and I always top deck Nutty off of it too. It's a crazy card when it comes to it. My opponent in the final round, a Spiral player, was also playing the Ningirsu, and he summoned one of these to the zone I had, and it was pointing to my Lee the World Chalice Fury, and I thought that was the coolest combo ever. Double Firewall. I've played it at 3. I've played it at 1. 2 is the best number for it, and I wouldn't recommend changing. One of Link Spider is pretty mandatory. The Trigate. I played the Gaia so that way I can go into Trigate plays. Didn't honestly see the I only saw the Trigate play once that day. Most of the people are going to play enough Interruption to prevent a Trigate play, but when you get it on the field, it's pretty nutty. The Seraphonite is pretty standard. Sending a light monster, your Lees are going to add themselves back to hand, so it essentially sets up all your combos and gives you a double normal summons for Chalice plays. I thought 41 would put in a little more work, but it saved me one game. But I honestly would have rather run Borreload. Borreload would have put in definitely more work. Sideboard's pretty standard, to be honest. It's the Hanawadas, the Denkasekas, Dimensional Barrier, Anti-Spells, Magical Spring. Last second, my friend was talking about how much he thought this would be busted, and it absolutely was. I only got to get it off 2 times in my tournament, but the 2 times I did it, I stole my Spiral players, Link 3s, and I was able to go off on my board with Link materials. Stealing a Link monster with this will advance your plays so much, even especially since a lot of the Link monsters Spirals play are World Chalice Link monsters, so you could take the Ibs or you could take the Ningirsus. In my instance, I took the Decode Talker, and it set up this really cool play with Dandelion. I absolutely loved it. In terms of things I would change for the deck, I'd probably change the Ogre to the Ash. I'd probably cut the Rescue Rabbits for just a lower deck count. I was sitting at 43 cards, so it never bricked. I always saw the cards I needed in my hand when I needed them. I never saw a huge brick that I couldn't work with. Other than that, it was a pretty great deck. I performed well. I never got I had a lot of intense matchups where it was down by the wire, but you pile it out of it because you just tech around your opponent with hand traps and stuff. And then the deck kind of pilots itself when it comes to you just making your combos.
Awesome. Well, do you have any shout-outs for today?
I gotta give a shout-out to my boy Travis. Travis is the one who recommended the enemy controllers, and he's the one who gave me the Herald of Orange Lights. My friend Marcin on the World Chalice page, he's the one who recommended the Orange Lights for me, and that saved me games all the time. Nate's the one who gave me the ride, and then John Hockery's the one who gave me the Solemn Scoldings. Ethan lent me all the hand traps that weren't the Orange Lights, and that was pretty dope of him. So, shout out to all my friends who lended me stuff to help me get through the tournament.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Gabe. Like I said before, this is Gabe Isaacs, who was placed 2nd place at the Altoona, Iowa Regional this past weekend, piloting his World Chalice. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, this is Nate from the Scrub Academy, signing out for now. Peace out.